It's time for another episode of The Oil Stream with Dustin Nielson and Tom Gazzola, presented by Popeye's Louisiana Kitchen.
Welcome to another edition of The Oil Stream. It is Nielson and Gazzola with you here on St. Patrick's Day. I've gone with the Golden Bears football t-shirt and the suit jacket. And Tommy, you've gone with a look that Jack Michaels is certainly going to rip you for, wearing a vest with a green shirt.
I want to show people that this is actually a Charlie Conway Captain Duck.
Okay, that's better.
Mighty Ducks shirt. Because nothing screams hockey on St. Patrick's Day than a guy who's an Italian Polak and pasty white wearing a vest and a green t-shirt.
That sums it up nicely, I think.
Right?
Right? Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
All right, welcome to another edition of The Oil Stream. It's brought to you by Popeye's Louisiana Kitchen. 7 locations rated Edmonton, 12 of them here in the northern Alberta area. Available on DoorDash, Skip the Dishes, Uber Eats. If for some reason you've been living under a rock for the last year and you've not tried the Popeye's chicken sandwich, pick one up. And then, of course, also, and I like that one tweet we got today of the guy who had Nickelback holding a photo of 3 of these, which was just excellent work, Tommy. We do have the collector cups, including this one, and you've got a little bit of news, my man.
Absolutely. Shout out to Dylan Cardinal for that great Photoshop
Great
work.
one.
Clearly listening to the morning show today, the Smash Hit Nielsen show. Yes, a little bit of news with the reverse retros. I guess those that really wanted to see it at least one more time, sounds like you're going to get your wish. The Oilers are apparently about to wear them one more time. I'm not sure exactly which game it is. Sounds like it'll come against the Winnipeg Jets, but they're originally only supposed to wear them for 3 games. We saw those 3 games already, but they were lobbying the league and their opponents to wear them at least one more time. And it sounds like they'll play them against the Jets at some point this season, or wear them against the Jets at some point this season.
Let's crank it up a little bit more, though. Like, if you can get the approval for one, let's mix it up a little bit more. Don't you think? Like, I know I've seen like a few people who have said, I don't really love them. But for the most part, I think they're getting passing grades here. I'd like to see them in them all the time.
Hey, if they wear them instead of their alternate blues or even their home orange, I think that's a win indeed. So yeah, one more time at least for the reverse retro. Hopefully more than that. That would be great. I like them a lot. The white uniforms, both of them, I think, are razor sharp compared to the blue and the orange.
All right, if you are watching on the live stream, subscribe to the podcast, The Oil Stream. Find it wherever you get your podcasts. We'll be there. Also, you can ask any questions. We might have a little bit of mailbag time today. So any questions you have, don't be afraid to just type in a little comment in the comment section and ask a question, and we will get to some of those as we work our way through this. The lineup for tonight against the against Calgary in the Battle of Alberta, we'll get to that in a second. Tommy, we haven't done an edition of The Oil Stream since the first game of this 2-game set. Did you notice anything different between the Flames with Sutter as opposed to the Flames without Sutter when it comes to playing against the Edmonton Oilers?
Heart, hustle, no give up. Like, they were on top of the Oilers all over the ice, and they were like airtight. I know Edmonton has a lot of offensive dynamos, but I thought Calgary played a really tight game. And then part of me asked, are teams trying to copy what Toronto did to the Oilers? And I feel like yes is the answer. I asked Dave Tippett about it yesterday, and he was in a bad mood, and he threw it right back at me. He's like, if that's how you see it, I'm okay. Well, fine. I'm okay with that. Yeah. So he's been grumpy Tippett lately, and he gave me some sass yesterday. That's fine. I'm not going to be worried about it. It doesn't hurt my feelings, Tip. I only cried about it for about an hour after. So anyway, yeah, they just seem like they're going at teams a little bit harder, specifically the Oilers as well.
I was flooding the rink late last night, like midnight again, and more news on that in a second. But flooding around midnight, and I get a text from Tommy that says, "You up?" Like you wanted to talk, Tommy. What can I say? You're in a tough spot all day. I like all emotions of Tip. Like I like grumpy Tip. I like happy Tip. I like when he's like in a silly mood and dealing with the media that way. Like I really like him. Of all the coaches that they've rotated through here, I think he's probably my favorite.
Yeah, it's funny because you hear him say, don't get too high, don't get too low when times are good or times are rough. And even Tip, I mean, I think he lives by that mantra. So you can really tell when there's a shift, a subtle shift in how he is. Because generally he's gruff, but you can't really tell. You're like, is he in a bad mood? I don't know. Is he in a good mood? I don't know. But he gives you those little nuggets from time to time where you're like, oh, I've known you long enough that you're angry today, or hey, you're in a silly mood. You're silly, Tip, today. So yeah, it's he's really good. He actually is. You know what? I think it's a microcosm too. In all seriousness, Dusty, is of this Zoom stuff and not actually interacting with humans, and you only have X amount of time in those Zoom calls, and you know usually the same people want to get in on their stuff, and they're working and hustling on stuff. And it's just you get into that same routine over and over and over again. So I think everybody's growing weary of all of this, and that's just part of it. But it's fun to joke about it.
Of all the coaches that have been here in the last 11 years, there's a lot. Which guy was the most difficult to get a read on heading into a chat like that?
Oh, difficult to get a read on Dallas Aikens, because you're like, how much bullshit are we going to listen to today? and he was nice. Like, I have no qualms with Dallas Aikens. You're just like, man, I don't like. I remember listening to those press conferences, and I would have to do a pregame story, and I'd be like, I don't even know if I can use any of that, because it's like none of that was like legitimate. Like, it was just like, geez, man. And then. You know what's funny too? There's been some really good guys that have come through here. It just hasn't worked. Tom Rennie was excellent. Ralph Kruger was excellent. Pat Quinn, same thing as Aikens. Like, you'd get like a 15, 20-minute press conference and you'd be like, I don't know if I can use any of that. I mean, it was highly entertaining, but geez, there's not even a 15-second clip I can throw into a story, because you're like, most of it was nonsense. And Todd Nelson was really good. Craig McTavish is always excellent. I mean, it was hard to get a read on Aikens. And then another one that could be ornery at times, but I really have a ton of respect for, is Todd McClellan.
Yeah, McClellan, he came across as a guy. Like, I just always look at it from, I'm not in there asking questions, and we can discuss about that, but I always look at it. And I've had a chance to chat with a few of these guys on the show or at a golf tournament or whatever. The guy you just want to sit down and talk hockey with. Like, not about the Oilers, not about the game, but just the guys that you want to sit down and talk hockey with. And Tom Rennie was always one that really jumped off the page as a guy that I'd like to have on my show for an hour and not talk about anything, like everything outside of the Oilers, just with the game. I think he would have been a great guy for that. Hey,
and Todd Nelson is the guy you'd want to talk about like great stories and sit down and have a beer or two with. And Ralph Kruger, it would be like the Dos Equis guy, the most interesting man in the world. And then Mac T's just a beauty. McClellan's intense. I feel like Tip's intense. And Pat Quinn, another guy that you just be like, I just want to hear this guy talk about playing NHL hockey in the 60s and 70s and throwing a mean charging elbow into Bobby Orr one night. I'd love to hear that story.
We had Mac T on one of our earlier episodes of Two Guys and a Goalie, and it was the best hour ever. Like, he was just absolutely phenomenal. He was great. So
he's such a good guy.
Yeah, just the nicest dude. He was awesome. All right, so as far as the lineup goes tonight here in the second half of this 2-game set, it's really sort of in flux right now, and we'll get to Kassian in a second. The big question, and we talked about it a little bit on my show this morning, was McDavid, Draisaitl. Tommy, would you lean towards them being back on their own lines tonight?
Today, I feel like it's going to be separated. I think that's now the appropriate time to say, all right, we did it for 5 games and, had success against Ottawa. Didn't work the last couple of games, had its opportunities. It clicked a couple of times. Beautiful goal by Draisaitl the other night. But now I think is a time where you probably need to separate it. Maybe this is Zach Kassian's return. I know we'll talk about that. Maybe get Dominic Cahoon back into the mix. And it feels like now's the right time to spread it out, because you stack them up it worked to a certain degree. Time now to throw something differently at the Flames than what you've been throwing at them the last game.
I'm sure Tippett will put Nugent Hopkins with Draisaitl and Yamamoto and then just find somebody else to play with McDavid. It's Nuge, McDavid, Puljujarvi, one of Ennis or Cahoon with Draisaitl and Yamamoto. Is that what you're expecting?
Yeah, probably. I think he goes back to Old Faithful. So that's what I'm guessing. That's what my gut tells me. But time will tell. I mean, they were on the ice at 11:30. Tip went before for his media availability, before his players were on the ice. So we're kind of in flux here until we find out more. Probably not till warm up unless we get some tidbits here and there.
Our CHL Gators on the Twitter account, they do some fine social media work.
Yep.
Says Handsome Tom needs to break out into a Mr. Burns See My Vest sing-along.
You don't want to hear my singing voice. I do remember that one. That was a great classic Simpsons.
That was with animals, right? Wasn't it a vest of furs and stuff like that?
Yep.
Isn't that what it was? Yeah,
it was.
That was pretty funny, actually. That was good. Yeah. Okay, so what happens in the bottom six? Jujar Kara out. What would happen there? You move Shore to the middle.
Yeah.
Gaetan Haas is your other center, and if Kassian draws back in, that's kind of where he slots in as well. Do you think?
I would assume as much. I really would, and then. Because I don't know if you're bringing back Patrick Russell. I don't know if you're bringing in Joakim Nygard. You could slide Shore over to the middle. You could have Cahoon on the left side on one of those lower lines. I think it's all going to be tossed up in the air, honestly. But that's probably the likeliest scenario, Dusty. I wish I had a more locked in answer.
Yeah.
But it's like, man, we might get some wild cards tonight. I feel like in the top six, Tip goes back to what he knows, but in the bottom six, who knows? Maybe he wants speed, and that's where Nygard comes in. Maybe he wants the hustle of a Patrick Russell, who we saw in action recently. We'll see. To me, it's a guessing game.
It's Nielson and Gazzola. If you're watching on the live stream, subscribe to the podcast. Just search the Oil Stream on all of your podcasting platforms. The fact that Barrie, is it going to be available at some time here in the very near future is a bullet dodged here for the Oilers, right, Tommy? Like if the news coming out yesterday was, hey, Barrie's out 4 to 6, that would have been, I think, and it depends on who you talk to, but I think that would have been pretty devastating for this group. I think they dodged a bullet here.
Big time. He's your third leading scorer, that power play, which is top 10. He's a catalyst there. I know you've got the two big dogs and Nugent Hopkins on that power play, but Barrie's role is very important on there, and he's found a rhythm and a groove. And him and Darnell Nurse have become a really steady, strong pair, and they play off of each other really well. So you hope that whatever he did on Monday night wasn't too bad. And, I mean, I couldn't see anything. Still, I haven't really seen anything. And who knows? Like, maybe it's just a minor thing that needed a day to get better, and hopefully it doesn't lead to more injury. But as long as he's not out for a prolonged period of time, I think is a good thing, because keep in mind, you have two really young, skilled, high-ceiling defensemen that are on that right side, but the emphasis is on young. One guy in his second year and the other guy in his rookie year, and that's a lot to expect out of those two if Barrie's not in. If
Barrie can't go, and I think we would see Nurse as the top unit power play point man. That's been his role. He's even been getting some time when Barrie is in. Does Bouchard get some power play one run, considering you're probably not going to leave Nurse out there for the full 2 minutes, Tommy?
I would say you might see Nurse out there for the full 2 minutes. We've seen the other guy. Yeah. And then when power play 2 gets out there, maybe it's Bear and maybe it's Barrie or Bouchard, pardon me. But I think for power play 1, Darnell's your guy. I just think that they go with what they know, and that's Darnell Nurse. So, yeah, he probably takes the full minute and a half instead of switching off at 45 seconds like he would with Barrie, and you go from there. Unless things are not going anywhere in a hurry on that power play, I'm guessing it's Darnell's spot instead of sharing it with Barrie.
Do you think Bouchard can handle that, though, right now?
I think he could personally. Yeah, I really do, but I don't know if that trust is there yet with the coaching staff. And this is an important part of the season. These are important games, and I don't know if they want to run that risk just yet.
All right, let's get into Ryan Nugent Hopkins and the contract discussions and the weird vibe in this city right now, since Rashog basically said they're going to be, and it started before that, but then Rashog says the two sides are going to open up talks again. They were in the 6 to 6.5 range last time. And then he said, there's a follow-up here and there's no rush. But I don't know what's happening. Tommy, can you explain to me this Nugent Hopkins discussion right now?
Well, I think it's encouraging that you're hearing that the Oilers and Rick Vallette are finally having conversations about a contract for Nugent Hopkins. That's the good thing. And then the weird thing that's going on right now is we're getting the numbers. And, we assumed if Nugent Hopkins was going to continue to play at the pace and points per game that he was last year, that he'd be in the 7.5 range, or that would be the ask at least. And the Oilers would have to try to talk him down. He's not there. He's got 23 points in 31 games. He's an important part of this team. We saw him playing center recently. He's been their best winger. I know Puljujarvi's had an emergence, and he's surging ahead. Just wanted to give you that little tidbit there. Yeah, for you. But the weird part about all of this is with Rashog saying, 6 to 6.5, I think when I read that, I'm like, oh, then where's the problem? Like, this is probably what people are okay with. But on the post-game show, he was getting lit up by some of our listeners. And it's almost like as soon as a guy is on the cusp of his next contract, there's some kind of vibe here where fans of the team take offense to numbers that are being tossed out and speculated on, not even like real hard numbers. And they start to judge this player differently and carve this player. There were people trading Nugent Hopkins after the game the other night on my post-game show saying he's not worth 2.5. And I'm just like, this guy's a pillar on your team. The players love him. He's been here for 10 years. And you think you're just going to go and take his $6 million and trade him for something that's going to easily replace the hole that was left behind? It doesn't happen. That's not a real world situation and solution. Like, I don't know where these fantasy ideas come from, but just the fact that people are turning on Nugent Hopkins is what baffles me. It's absolutely incredible. He was the darling. Like a few months ago, and now they turn on him and they hate him for some reason. And the other thing too, Dusty, 6 to 6.5, he's been making 6 for the last 7 years. Like, is it your money? Are you that offended? Like, what's the problem? They've got cap space. Like, I don't understand. It's just mind-blowing. Some people go crazy as soon as contracts get discussed. This is Ryan Nugent-Hopkins here. He wants to be here. He's one of the few guys that's like, I like being an Oiler. I want to stay here. And he's an excellent NHL player, and people just, they're turning their backs on him. And I look at that and go, what did you guys drink tonight? Like, what's going on here? It blows my mind.
It's people who've been cooped up in their house for a year now, just going crazy. That's the only thing I can think of. Like, there's so many. I could do 2 hours on this. I honestly could, because there's so many different angles to take. First of all, you said he likes to be here and wants to be here. And you know what? In the end, you're not giving him more money because of that, but I would not try to run him out of town because of that. How many times do we have to sit here at our radio station and look at text messages and say, nobody wants to come here? Nobody wants to come here. So a guy wants to stay here for a minimal raise, and you're like, nope, you can do something else. And you can't. Like, this is the thing. You can't. So you're going to sit here and tell me, and you know what's really driving me crazy is people saying, you can't give him that elite money. Guess what?
That's not elite money.
$6 million isn't elite money. $6 million is what you give a good hockey player in the National Hockey League right now, and Nugent Hopkins is a good hockey player. People are torching him this year. He's scoring at a 26-goal pace. Last year, he scored at a 27-goal pace. The year before that, he scored 28. The year before that, he shot at a 28-goal pace. He's not even a goal scorer, and the dude's giving you 25. Like, any penalty kills. He can play the wing. He can play center. He actually fits in on a power play where McDavid and Draisaitl mostly just want to pass to each other. They will pass to Nugent Hopkins once in a while, and he's able to make some good plays with it. It's completely blowing my mind. And then you think about, okay, we can't give him the money, so you're going to take that same money and give it to somebody else. There's nobody else there with the exception of Landeskog, who's not leaving Colorado because they know what they have in him. They're going to lock him up. There's nobody else out there, or a combination of two players that you can get a top 6 winger, a second line center, a penalty killer, and a top unit power play guy for $6 million. There just isn't. Yep. So stop trying to say that Nugent Hopkins isn't worth what he's making right now. It's embarrassing for our market to see those takes. It honestly is. And get this. I'm embarrassed by some people in our market. I'm embarrassing myself sometimes, but this is not a good look.
It's not. And it has shades of the Darnell Nurse discussions last year too. People were just ripping Nurse when he was in the negotiation phase of his extension. And now he's their darling. They're like, oh, well, he's really good. Top pairing guy. We need Darnell Nurse. And when he was going through that negotiation, people were like, he's not worth $6 million. He's not even worth $4 million. And I think what did he come in at? Like 5.25, 5.5. He came in lower than expected. And we had the same arguments. We're like, listen, a defenseman of Nurse's caliber makes around $6 million. Here are guys his age, his point percentage and scoring rate. Like, this is the going rate across the National Hockey League. And it just doesn't sink into some people's minds. And they come out with these ridiculous hot takes and they take offense. And you're like, who hurt you? What did they do to you here? Because this is a hockey team that has money to spend and wants to keep their elite and best players. And that's how you do it.
This just is too simple. It just makes too much sense. But if you were to give Ryan Nugent-Hopkins $6.25 million on his next deal, that 6.25 or in that $6 million contract range would be one of the best $6 million contracts in the National Hockey League right now. I mean, I know Boston's got some sweetheart deals, but outside of that, you look at a lot of the other guys making $6 million and none of them can even come close to Ryan Nugent-Hopkins. So I don't know, man. It's a weird time right now.
Here's the cherry on top, and a bit of my pet peeve, I'm going to share it with people, is as soon as a guy goes into UFA contract talks time and you don't hear enough about negotiations, they just assume it's time to get rid of him. It's like, no, just because you're not having talks and he's going into a UFA season or a UFA off season doesn't mean you have to just let him go or trade him. You can have discussions in the off season. You can have verbal agreements. Those exist, but there's like this assumption among some, not everybody, where as soon as a guy is not having the negotiations right when people want them to be happening, and he's going into a UFA offseason, they're like, well, yeah, I guess you got to trade him. You got to get something for him. It's like, well, what if you want to keep him? You can keep him still, or you can negotiate with him when he's a UFA. Like it's just, sometimes I get just so annoyed by that.
The moment you sign or you don't sign Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, you are immediately searching for another Ryan Nugent-Hopkins. I mean, if you can't learn that lesson, then what are you doing? And on top of that, so fired up about this Nuge stuff. It drives me crazy. I lost my train of thought. I had one more topic that I wanted to get to when it comes to Ryan Nuge. Oh, yeah, this one. How did I forget this? So last year, 5-on-5 with Draisaitl, he's lighting it up. And he's doing too well. Can't sustain this. Doing too well. I mean, those numbers are unsustainable. And now he's not doing well 5-on-5 and he's a bum. So like, what do you want? Do you want him to light it up with Leon Draisaitl and then everybody bitch about how those numbers are unsustainable? Or do you want to rip him for not producing 5-on-5 this year? Like you just can't have it both bloody ways.
You know what? Very true points. And it's part of what makes what we do so much fun. I mean, it drives us up the wall some days, but I would rather not be doing anything else but this.
I don't know why I was yelling. Sorry, Tommy. I
love it, buddy.
So confused by simple things, but what are you going to do? All right, Don Wheaton on White pregame show tonight, Tommy. 2 hours. What do you got coming up?
We've got Matt Kassian. We're hoping to land. I think Aaron Vickers is on the docket from a Flames point of view. If that's news to Aaron, whoops, sorry, dude. Connor Halley will be reaching out. And we'll probably try to do another roundtable in the last segment to kind of keep things interesting and fresh. Good stuff for 2 hours. It's these 8 o'clock starts that lead to a 2 hour show, and we try to bring as much into it as we can.
One last comment here. Where is it? Yeah, a couple of them here. Broadcast and Brad. You know Brad.
Yep, of course.
When does Gazzola make his debut on Sons of Anarchy? With that vest. That's a pretty good chirp, actually.
I need to do a few cycles of roids first before I get on there. They don't like European trim fit physiques.
You're a prospect right now. Sometimes things don't end well for a prospect. Yeah.
Oh, boy. Oh, boy.
All right, Tommy. Well, a solid episode today, buddy. If you've been watching on the live stream, subscribe to the podcast. Just search for The Oil Stream. You can get it whenever you want. 2 episodes a week. We'll be back with another one on Friday. We'll have a Jets game to break down, actually, on Friday. So that should be good as well. Tommy, good stuff, buddy. Enjoy the game tonight and tomorrow night, and we'll catch up later in the week.
Sounds good, Dusty. You too.
Yeah.